Good morning and welcome to our Spring Forward presentations. Now that you're on the verge of being able to reopen your stores, we wanted to give you some insight into some topics of interest. So for today, we have our Catherine Shuttleworth speaking with the Catherine Shuttleworth, the CEO of Savvy, about the future of retail and the huge changes happening on the high street, consumer trends, and being part of your local community. Thanks for listening.
I am delighted to welcome back Kathryn Shuttleworth, retail expert. We're very lucky to have you talk to us again for our Spring Forward video series because non-essential retail, as we know, reopens soon. And we'd love to hear your insights and views on the future of retail. And I think I wanted to start off because I've seen and heard quite a bit from you over the past 6 months on TV and the radio. And I just wondered if you'd start by sharing some of the big stories you've covered in retail over this time.
Well, it's been really interesting in lockdown. I mean, I've not really been off the telly, so it's nice to see you all again and kind of give you my view on what's happening. So over the last 6 months, obviously, there's been an awful lot of discussion about non-essential retail opening, closing again. And then how does non-essential retail really adapt to support shoppers? And I think that's been this time in this last lockdown, that's been a really big part about adaptations and creativity of retailers. But the big stories that I've been talking about have been Debenhams, Boohoo buying the Debenhams brand, taking it off the high street and in effect making it just an online only business. So that was a very big story. And obviously the Topshop story was huge. You know, the kind of collapse of Arcadia and of Philip Green's business. That provoked an awful lot of interest from people. So they were the two, I would say, single biggest stories that I've covered since we spoke last. And then I've been constantly discussing things from the closure of Thornton's last week on the high street, businesses that have decided not to come back with retail, just go as a direct to consumer business. And we'll perhaps talk about that because that's a very big trend. And then the question I get asked all the time, which is what's the high street going to look like in the future, which I find almost impossible to answer, but I do try. So they're the things I've been talking about.
That was going to be your next question as well. Just with these some of these changes being so seismic, it just how does it make you think about what the future high street looks like?
I mean, I think seismic's a really good word, isn't it? I was on a call last week with John Lewis, and the Dame Sharon White, who's taken the business on, calls it an economic earthquake the last year. And I think she's right. You know, there are seismic changes. And what's happened is we've probably seen about 10 years worth of change, which to be fair, was on its way, happen in about 6 months. So I think there's been huge change, and the big change is going to be about who returns from the lockdown, what it looks like when all the economic support is taken away, particularly furlough for retail. And I think we are going to see a different kind of high street. But I think the really positive thing for some of the people on this call today is when we've just done quite a big piece of research into what shoppers are thinking. 25% of them want to shop more locally when the pandemic's finished. So I think we're going to see two kinds of high street emerging. The very big high streets, sort of, you know, the centre of Leeds where I live, the centre of Manchester, which, by the way, are still going to have their challenges. But you're going to see a real revival in what I would call market towns and local high streets. And I think they're going to be the big winners out of this.
So what kind of change do you see in that blend of physical and digital as well?
Well, I think that's interesting, isn't it? I heard somebody called it phygital the other week, which I'm not sure I quite like, which is a mix of physical and digital. It's quite hard to say, isn't it? I mean, I think increasingly when it comes to anything that's non-food, you know, the big winners of lockdown, let's be honest, have been the supermarkets and Amazon. But when it comes to non-food, we've got very, very used to ordering online. So businesses have adapted very quickly. So those businesses, I'm sure some of the people that are, you know, your customers have very quickly changed their business, whether it's a click and collect service or a very personalized delivery service, into finding ways to deliver. And I think that will remain. And there are lots of ways now with things like, you know, plug and play ways of turning your business into an online business pretty quickly. So I think we'll see that remaining. But I do believe there is still a big place for the store. And I think what we'll see is on the 12th of April, there will be a big rush back to stores. We'll see. I can predict it now. Queues outside Primark with, TV reporters saying people have been here since 5 o'clock. And somebody will come out with loads of bags and say, I spent £700 in Primark. We'll all go, how, won't we? But so there'll be a big push. There's tons of pent-up spending. People talk about big savings. I don't call it savings. I call it stuff we didn't spend. We didn't mean to save it. We just didn't spend it. So there will be a big push. And if the weather's nice, people go to store. But I think there's going to be a kind of difference in ages. So if you're under 40, you want to go back out, whether that's to a bar, a restaurant, and enjoy what we're going to call the roaring 20s. So getting back out there. But if you're over 40, or in fact, if you're over 30 and you've got a family, you're going to start shopping more locally and continuing to shop online, and only really going to the stores for big occasions. So Easter, back to school, which is a big one for you, and Christmas. So I think there's going to have to be a shift in the amount of physical space on the high street. But if it was me, I wouldn't do too much too quickly. I would move slowly. And I find John Lewis's plan to close some of their stores a bit surprising. I think they'd be better waiting to see how we bounce back into retail again. But, none of us can, nobody can say that digital retailing isn't going to increase, because of course it's going to, isn't it? But I think the big things in physical retail that are going to be important are going to be about service. And that is really good for a lot of your customers, because nothing replaces great service when you're buying a pair of shoes for your kids, or you're buying their first blazer for senior school. But I think what you'll find is people want appointments booked. They'll want to be able to organise to come and see you and have a slot. And actually, from a retail perspective, that's good, because you can manage your time better, you can manage your staffing better, and arguably you can give a better service. So I think you'll see that all across retail, improved service standards, but probably less stores.
That's really interesting. So just thinking about what you said about the local resurgence in shopping, how do you feel kind of specialist and independent retailers can take advantage of some of those opportunities?
I think the really important thing to do is, I think I said this last time, is know your market inside out. And most specialist and independent retailers that survive know that anyway. So I don't want to be patronised and say, get to know your customers, because I bet you really do. But think about how can you join with other local retailers and other local businesses. So that would be hospitality businesses, it might even be the local banks and so on. Think about how you can be part of your local community and really dial that up, because localism is going to be a strong strand coming out of this. And I think, getting involved with a local school, being part of the local community and helping that local community get back on its feet and being very present in that is going to be really important. And they're the sort of things I think, extended opening hours where you can around back to school, thinking ahead about what parents want. That's going to be really, really important for businesses to think about, but make everything a really local strand. And don't be afraid to talk to your local paper, get onto your local radio station, put yourself out there. That's quite important.
That's all brilliant. I was going to get you to summarise what you think the kind of biggest challenges and opportunities are ahead, but I think you've covered so many things there for us, Catherine.
Yeah, I'll tell you some trends. Shall I do some some
that
trends?
Brilliant, yeah.
So we talk to 1,000 shoppers a month, as you know, Catherine, and we talk to them about what's happening, what's going on in their world. And a couple of interesting things that you and your viewers might want to hear is, we ask them all the time, what are the things that concern them the most? And we mean financially, usually. Interestingly, people normally talk about the cost of living, the cost of their electricity and their gas. Unsurprisingly, COVID is the number one concern. First of all, for health of the family, but secondly, for the economy. But what is really interesting is the third biggest concern is environment. And that has come up from about number 15, I think, on the list. And why I think that's interesting for you and for your partners and suppliers and customers is, this is really, really big on the shopper's agenda. They're looking for people who are doing the right thing, whether that's from not having carrier bags, whether that's the manufactured process, maybe it's about recycling uniform and so on. So environment is going to be a very big driver for customer choice. The other thing is that whilst there are going to be some challenges in the economy, loads of people have got a lot of money to spend. So there is this pent up, not spent money as opposed to savings. So we're seeing an awful lot of that. And the things that people are going to be very concerned about are health and wellness, education, and we are going to see a different kind of view than we have done for the last couple of years. So, you know, if you're a business that looks after families and serves families locally, there's a lot you can dig into there, I think, over the next few months and hopefully trade really well.
Fantastic. So many ideas there, Kathryn. Thank you so much for your time again today. And it's certainly given us plenty to think about. Thanks so much. See you soon. Bye.